How's everybody doing tonight? Shout out to Chris Whitlock for joining early. Glad you can be here. You see the first slide. That's not the thumbnail, but that's the first slide. We'll talk a little bit about credit cards, PCI DSS. Something I do a little, very little, but Dr. Finesse, glad you can join me. Check out on my LinkedIn. I'm always struggling on LinkedIn. So we'll see what we're going to do over there. So peeking at it, said it's going to start soon. So we'll see what's going on over there. So uh, you know how we do it. If you got any questions, just drop them in the chat. Tech or cybersecurity, you know how we do it. Caesar in the house. So, like I said, we're gonna get a little into the credit cards. Just gonna talk a little bit about the compliance of credit cards. Then we're gonna jump into AWS and talk about how to configure AWS to be PCI DS compliant. Then delve in a little bit into logging. So I always get a lot of logging questions, which I think are unique. So part of PCI DSS, they have logging, keeping track of stuff in case you get hacked. So we're gonna kind of dig into that requirement a little bit. So check out my two guys in there, Chris and Dr. Finesse. They be in the GRC study hall. So I usually pop in with them some and check them out. So go to the GRC study hall. Chris, if you want to, you can drop the link to Zoom if you want for the GRC study hall. It's up to you. Once again, if you got any questions, just put them in the chat. We're going to get it started. I'm sure a few people catch the replay. Curious if it's from 800-53 who has to comply and their assessment requirements map out of the controls. Let me highlight that. Curious if it's from 800-53 who has to comply. Their assessment requirements map out the controls. Way different too. Um, that's a yes and no. You know, I usually do 800-53 in IRS. We had to buy a new payment system, right? So we had to make sure the PCI DSS was IRS approved, right? So we were kind of, which I hate this term, harmonizing security requirements between PCI DSS and the IRS, because the IRS feels that if you pay for your taxes or that you owe, then that PCI data becomes IRS data. So it was getting a little crazy with it. So, but they could use the team who did the CSF docs to pretty up the PCI. That's true. That is true. So let's get started real quick. So that's the DSS part right there. Payment card industry data security standard was developed to encourage and enhance payment cards accounts, data security facilities, board adoption, consistent data security measures globally. Everybody's using credit cards now, right? So that's really the payment pretty much of choice now. And a lot of companies or vendors or food trucks, everybody's paying with credit cards. So once again, how do you secure that data, especially now with hacking just going on another frenzy, right? So the PCIDS provides a baseline of technical and operational requirements designed to protect account data while specifically designed to focus on environments with payment card account data. PCIDS can also be used to protect against threats and secure other elements in the payment ecosystem, right? So we talking about credit cards, debit cards, and other, once again, payment apps, right? And now a lot of people are paying through their computers, right? You go on Amazon, and Amazon's already got your credit card saved, right? So that always calls it frictionless payment. They want to make it easy for you to pay, right? So that's really the thing that's happening. So Let's keep going. Once again, if y'all got any questions, drop them in the chat. So I looked up a couple jobs right before we started, right? Shout out to Getting to the Money, Women in Linux. That's how Getting to the Money, right? So how does that work, and how is that things going about it? So let's see. Let me take my man Chris off the screen. So you see it, and we're going to talk about. There's a number. I'm calling them roles. PCI Qualified Security Assessor. That's a QSA who will work closely with the client to work closely with the signs closely with the client to assess and validate organizational security controls against regulatory requirements, right? PBO struggling tonight, but that's what it is. So they have a few of these QSA. I think it was a security development person. I think they had a QSR. So we're going to talk about 3 or 4 of those roles. And once again, how do you get your skills up to get that type of money, right? We know it's not going to be overnight. I think they wanted 4 years of experience, right, to get your QSA, to become a QSA consultant. There's another one. This is starting from 80, but you see it, 3+ years of payment credit card security with direct experience in PCI DSS, information security and auditing, technical knowledge and familiarity with payment security standards. Once again, PCI qualified security assessor, certification in good standing is a must. Other things related to that was, once again, PCI DSS. We're going to talk about the PCI PA DSS, PCI PTS, GLIBA, which is financial requirements for bank, ISO, which is the international standard. I'm a NIST guy, federal, GDPR, which is privacy in Europe, and CCPA, which is privacy in Cali, right? So it lets you know what they're looking for, what you need to get, and what you need to work on your skills from a GRC perspective, right? Um, Once again, 3 years is not a lot of experience, right? So once again, we're going to talk about the different roles, like the QSA right there, and there's a PA role right there. Once again, we'll talk about those different roles that you can do from a PCI/DSS assessor type role. So here's at a high level. We're going to start drilling down into there, right? So PCI DSS 4.0, the data security standard, stands at the high level, right? Build and maintain a secure network and systems. So everybody's always asking me about network. I tell people that's a skill you need to get at least decent at a high level, because you're going to be accessing networks, trying to secure networks, and seeing vulnerabilities or gap in networks, right? So install and maintain network security controls, apply security configurations to all system components in the network, right? There could be sticks, schisms. So there's a few different hardening compliances that you can use to secure your infrastructure. Protect account data, protect stored account data, protect cardholder data with strong encryption during transmission over uh, open public networks, and even internally, right? So you want to protect encryption, right? Man in the middle, people sniffing, people trying to capture your data, right, and stealing and run up your credit cards. Maintain a vulnerability management program, protect our system and networks from malicious code, develop and maintain secure systems and software, right? Vulnerability, Rapid Sevens out there. So there's a ton of software you can use to scan your network to show your vulnerabilities if you patched, if you need to patch, right? We're familiar with Patch Tuesday from Microsoft that comes out, but of course you have other infrastructure and components you need to lock down. Implement strong access control measures, restrict access to system components and cardholder data by business need to know, identify users and authentication access to system component, restrict physical access to cardholder data. Regularly monitor and test networks, log and monitor all access to system components and cardholder data, test security in systems and networks regularly. There's actually a specific role that PCI has for that. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Maintain an information security policy, support information security with organizational policies and programs, right? Shout out to GRC, study how they working on policies and procedure now to become accustomed with those so they can see what they look like in real life. So, but that's the high level. Let's see what uh see the comments over here. We seen that one. They could use the team that did the CI. Yep. Let's see. From 80, must have to update the passport global travel comment. Yeah, probably. What's up, Todd? Glad to see you. So let's keep rolling. Let's see. I'm checking on my LinkedIn. It ain't even started, man. I be struggling on LinkedIn. I don't know. Maybe I need to let me refresh that over there. Once again, if you got any questions, just drop them in the chat. Okay, I see me over there doing a little something. So yeah, just checking on my LinkedIn. Let's keep rolling. So PCI DSS is intended for all entities that store or process credit card. I mean, food trucks, everybody's got their portable Stripes and PayPal machines. You can do it on your phone with the dongle, right, with your Apple Pay. So there's a lot of ways to take credit cards now. I don't know if that's good or bad, right? But there's a lot of touch points and hack points now for credit cards. Right, transmit cardholder data, which is the CHD, sensitive authentication data, which is the SAD, which is the SAD, could impact the security of the cardholder data environment, which is the CDE. This includes all entities involved in payment card account processing, includes merchant, processor, acquirers, issuers, and other service providers. Right, so once again, you're trying to secure your credit card information, everything from your Apple Pay phone to your Stripe machine, going into your network. Some people are batching up credit cards to be sent in a batch process, right? So there's a couple ways to do it. So let's keep rolling. So the account data, what is the card data includes primary account number, they call it the PAN, cardholder name, expiration date, and service code. And we just looked at the side in there. The sensitive authentication data includes full track data, magnetic strip data, or equivalent to a chip, card verification number, that's the 3-digit code, and the PIN and PIN blocks, right? Some cards you got to put in the PIN, right, from a debit card. And even some credit cards are taking PINs, right? So that's your credit card data and your sensitive part of the credit card data. So once again, all that has to be protected in there. Then we're going to drill down even more. You see it, you got the account data, credit card data, and the sensitive authentication data. Data elements, once again, the PAN, card number, service, expiration date, full card, PIN, and block. Storage restriction. Storage is kept to a minimum as defined in requirement 3.2. We'll start looking at some of these requirements. Storage is kept in a minimum as defined by that. Cannot be stored after authorization as defined by that. All right, so a lot of times you shouldn't keep the store the 3-digit PIN because if somebody hacks that, the 3-digit PIN will be the last piece of them to be able to charge with your card, right? So required to render stored data unreadable. Yes, which actually means encryption, right? Yes, data stored until authorization is complete must be protected and stored. Cryptography, which is encryption, which is defined in requirement 3.3.2, right? We know what you said right there. PCI DSS4 added a few more requirements. We'll dig into those requirements at the high level, right? Everybody's trying to get more secure. Everybody's trying to get a little better, right? So that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to make happen today. So let's see, my man Big Cam, bless you, big. I appreciate it. Big Cam in the house. Definitely gonna have him on the show. Got to start interviewing people. Salute. Appreciate you, Aiken. Shout out to the big homie, Keep It Techie. I was glad to see him. So let's keep going. We're trying to keep those credit cards safe. Glad one of the tech Avengers came to join me for a hot second. So once again, we just saw it, right? Payment supports the use of secure credit card data within the cardholder environment. What that was the CDE, payment application data security standard. That's what we actually saw on the job description, right? That was the PA DSS, the Secure Software Security Foundation, right? Some people do custom code, right? That has to reach out to PayPal. They want to control more of the experience of you using your credit card, right? Software secure lifecycle standards, software that is PCI CSS validated and listed providers ensure the software has been developed using secure practices and has met a defined set of software requirements. You know, that's Apple Pay, Stripe. There's so many vendors out there now that you can use their machine. So they're saying, and I should have put a slide in there. It shows all those vendors and that they are PCI compliant, right? So that's kind of the good housekeeping skill, which is an old term, right? Just meaning that software has been reviewed and deemed to be safe from a PCI standpoint. And two is when I do assessment, a lot of times that's what I'm looking for if we need to get with the a payment vendor. Are they PCI qualified? Have they ever been hacked? What level of PCI? Because a lot of times, depending on the number of transactions, right, it's different levels of those type of vendors too. So once again, if you got any questions, just put them in the chat. Shout out to my man XL. Salute. So let's keep rolling. Talking about credit cards today. I got a playlist of probably the top 10 compliance. So I'm not, I don't do a lot of PCI work, but it's definitely one of the top compliances because every restaurant uses it, every person uses it, right? I think Cash App is PCI certified. So there's so much frictionless money moving around, right? PayPal, Cash App, Stripe, Apple Pay. You go in, you can tap your credit card, right? All of that falls under PCI DS and it should be secured, right? So that's why it's one of the top compliances. And there's the two type, right? We just talked about it. Validated software, payment software listed on a PCI CS website as validated payment application. Once again, PADS, validated payment software. That secure software standard has been evaluated by a qualified assessor. And validated software vendors, like we talked about, secure SDL standards defined by security requirements for a software vendor to integrate secure software development practice throughout the entire software lifecycle. Software vendors that has been validated as meeting the secure SL standard are listed in, once again, the PCI CSS website as a secure qualified vendor. All right. Once again, I'm sure if you look at Stripe, Apple Pay, they're all on that list, right? Because they all want to get that stamp of approval. Let's see. Salute. Let's see what my man Chris said. Oh my, oh my, I'm really demonetized. I can't even. Yeah, I told you I was demonetized. It's all good. Yeah, for the course development, it's all good. I'm making a comeback. I think I would. I get apply again in 3 months. Why would you say PCI is stressful in an auditor type position? Um, for me, a friend of mine had a restaurant and he actually got hacked. Right, so they took PCI DSS, made him spend $25,000 on a forensic analysis. Right, I don't think it's more stressful than any type, but I think you have a lot of people's livelihoods in the palm of your hands because if they fail the PCI, they can't take credit cards. If a business can't take credit cards, right? I think that puts them in a very precarious situation because a lot of people will go out of business if you can't use credit cards. Me, I always looking out for the smaller guys. So I think for me, that's why it's a little stressful. Like, my specialty is IRS work and NIST 800. These are huge federal agencies, huge companies. They got cyber insurance, most of them, so they probably would never go out of business, right? Or it would take them a long time. If a small vendor can't take credit cards for about 3 or 4 months, it might be over for them, Chris. So I think, from my standpoint, I think that's kind of why I approached it like that for the smaller guy. What's up, Sharon K? Glad you can join me. I'm always looking out for the little guy, Chris. I always looking out for the little guy. So that's kind of why I think it's a little more stressful for me thinking about that from a different a vantage point. Let's keep rolling. Is that the same slide? Yep. PBO didn't do a good job on the slide. So high level, understanding PCI. We were talking about scoping in the GRC study. How I'm gonna do a small video talking about scoping. You can have 1,000 VMs, but what's the scope of your credit card data, and how do you make that small as possible? Because you don't want the auditors. We used to say up in our shorts when I worked at DoD, right? So we want to make it small as possible. So when we come and get audited or assessed, they're not looking at everything. The smaller it is, the quicker they can get in and out, the cheaper to be, right? And less findings for you to fix, right? So once again, from a scoping standpoint, CDE, we talked about what that was. System components stores and process that, and or system components in the same network as or has unrestricted connectivity to your system that stores, process, or transmits that secretive data. So what does that mean? If you're on a flat network and they can run an Nmap or a Wireshark and start touching out every component from your PCI DS systems, all those other components are in scope because they can touch your, they can reach out and ping your machine, run a DDoS attack on your machine. So, like I said, if it's on the same network or unrestricted connectivity to your system, that's in scope. So if you got 1,000 machines and you only got one PCI DS credit card machine, but you got it's on a subnet with 1,000 VMs, all those in scope. So that's why we talk about subnetting, VLANs. You need to understand networking so you can make sure what's in that same network, and you can, once again, you want to make that scope as small as possible. So let's see what's any more questions on that. See what my man Todd said. Building and trying to move forward in the career. I'm with you on that. Shout out to you. Good luck on that. I would think an assessment may be more likely to be used in legal issues and reviewed by other closers than others too. Yeah, the weird part though is you very rarely have legal issues. Um, in an assessment. Now we talked about legal issues, but somebody suing you or class action, you got to be big to kind of come up with those legal issues. So the issues you really have is if an assessor comes, like we talked about, get over aggressive, all right, and even if you get hacked most of the time, you have cybersecurity as a smaller vendor, right? Your scope is so small. So hopefully you once again, my friend had a restaurant. He had to pay 25K for forensic analysis. So I think it's a little less legal issues on that. Let's keep rolling. So we're talking about the scope. We got to get our networking in, connect to or security impacting the systems. System components directly connect. System component impacts by configuration. System component segments from and out of scope of the network. System components provide security to the CDE, and there are systems that supports the PCI DSS. Right? Systems are considered directly or indirectly connected to the CDE if they can impact the security of CDE if compromised. For systems that not directly or indirectly connect to the CDE, controls must be specifically implemented and verified via penetration tests to confirm the connection to the CDE are not possible. Right. So in Nmap, once again, like you said, a pen test. You can do Cali, do some basic scanning and reaching out right before you pay for a big pen test. But a lot of times, if you can't see it on the Nmap, right, or hopefully you have virtual firewalls that are blocking those ports and procedures or machines that don't need to connect, right? Hopefully you have a inside your network, you're actually listing the hosts, just not the subnet, but these hosts can only get to the credit card machine, right? We're taking it another level. Not everything on the subnet, but these particular hosts can only get to this subnet to get to the credit card machine, right? So what's out of scope? Systems that does not store, process, or transmit data. Systems that's not in the same subnet or VLAN. We were talking about that. System components that cannot connect. system component does not meet any criteria describing connection, right? So that's part of that. And a lot of times when you come on site and have an assessor come on site, those are the things he's going to look at: your network infrastructure, your network architecture, subnet, VLAN, firewalls, virtual firewalls. And at the end, we're going to look at a PCI DS setup inside AWS and what that would look like. So let's keep rolling. An impact of the DSS. Assessor determines whether entity has implemented segmentation. To use segmentation to reduce PCI DS scope, island scope system component must be segmented from an outer scope system, such as outer scope systems cannot impact security of any of the in scope components. So these are some of the questions you ask. The big one is segmentation in place, right? Yes. Did the assessor validate the effectiveness of the segmentation? Yes. Assessor documents and report the segmentations in place. Once again, that's subnets, VLANs and firewalls. Those are your big segment, right? And if you're up in there, right, you setting up your security. And once again, what ports and protocols are you letting touch your credit card infrastructure? PCI DS sampling. Sets to determine the use of standardized process controls across populations being segmented. Does any use a single set of standardized processes and procedures, right? Policies and procedures, right? Those are the things. So what are your procedures? How do you get the data? How does the data get back? Who can get to the data and what's your process, right? And that's the things the assessor is going to look at. Validation, how do we validate? Entity designs and implement controls that meet the objective of the PCI DSS requirement. You can customize that, or you can implement entity controls per PCI DSS requirement. Define validation. If the entity has a legitimate document, technical or business constraint that prevents it from meeting DSS requirements as written, it implements and documents a compensating control for the accessor to review it, right? And we always talk about that. If you can't do this from a compensating control, what meets that same standard? What meets that same protection? What meets that same security level you're trying to stay with, right? So once again, just touching on the credit card stuff. We talked about that. Tam in the house. What are you yapping about? A little PCI DSS, trying to protect your credit cards. Shout out to her. Go check out Women in Linux. Go ahead and drop your channel on there, Tam, if you like. Keep it techie too. Anybody really. I'm a friendly guy, but definitely go check out Women in Linux. I try to go visit them every now and then, but she's definitely on top of the game. Let's keep going on the PCI DSS. Try to get to the compliance for those credit cards. We looked at. I did a TAM. I showed a few jobs, making a few money. So getting that PCI DSS, and once again, we're going to touch on the roles. It's about 6 or 7 roles where you can go if you get those kind of certifications and qualifications, you can make that type of money. So let's keep rolling. Once again, here's one of the roles. The PCI, if you go out there and do PCI, they actually have training, testing, certifications you can get. So I just highlighted a few of those roles and what you're trying to do. The council operates a qualified program. We looked at the QSA company seeking this is called a 3DS assessor. You can be recertified each year. The assessor is certified by the council or qualified to assess compliance from a PCI 3DS core security. To qualify the 3DS assessor company, a QS company must submit and sign a 3DS amendment and agreement. So that's probably the negative about PCI DS. A lot of times you got to work for a company that can submit you to get that level of qualifications or that certification to do that type of work. So most companies that do that, they're going to require you to stay a couple years, right, for you to get that type of work. So that's kind of one of my small issues with PCI DSS, where if you get the CISP, Security Plus, you study, you take, you got the cert. A lot of PCI DS, you got to get a company to recommend you to get that cert. So that's one small negative, not a huge negative. Shout out to Dr. Finesse. Why is it hard to be promoted without feeling like I have to? Oh, facts. That's the corporate game, Ty. I don't even know what to say on that. I don't even want to say on that. The other one is approved scanning vendor, as well as you have to be approved each year. The five founding members of the council, the ASV certified by the council, are being qualified to validate and adhere to the PCI DSS by performing vulnerability scans of internet-facing environments of merchants and services. Major requirement process is rigorous remote testing conducted by each vendor on the PCI Security Council test infrastructure, which simulates the network. People have been doing Qualis scans and Rapid 7 scans, right? So this is nothing new, right? But once again, they wrap it around PCI DSS, and most of those scans have a PCI DSS compliance. Once again, most people know I'm a NIST guy, so you can do a NIST compliance, HIPAA compliance, PCI DSS. You can do Rapid 7, Qualys, Nexus. Those are the few big guys out there that you can scan infrastructure with it. But once again, they show you how to specifically do it for PCI DSS. Card Production Security Accessor. This class teaches you how to perform assessment of entities in accordance with the PCR card production provisioning standards. There are two classes that teach you both the physical and logical security requirements that may be required as part of card production assessment. Logical assessor training will cover business processes, activities associated with card production, cryptographic key management, data preparation, pre-personalization, magnetic strips, and you see right there. So once again, that's the card production security accessor. And these are the things you're looking at right there. Once again, they have a lot of roles. A lot of those roles, if you get connected, will get you paid. So that's why I'm kind of going over it. And once again, you could Google these roles, figure out which ones best work for you. Once again, I do a little PCI work because the companies I work for, the vendors I work for, sometimes we have to change payment process, system, or another locations or switch it. So once again, we just check out to make sure they're PCI certified, go to the vendor list, and just hit the touch points like they talked about: outward facing, inward facing, what's encrypted and what's not, right? Because we're passing it out. Once again, everybody go check out my good friend Tam, Women in Linux. Even though it's women, they accept everybody. PB over there be causing problems, but definitely over there. I haven't been over there in the winter, but definitely go check her out. Do you recommend getting a PCI as a beginner? I probably wouldn't, because I think the PCI is going to ask for uh, a base level of experience, because all the jobs I look for like 3 or 4 years. I wouldn't start off as PCI, right? Because the company's gonna want to hire you and get you trained up. Then you probably have to work for the company. But I think even if a company's looking for somebody, they're gonna want you to have a few years of experience. So I would focus on, like we talked about, NIST, IRS, kind of I call them the basic certs, Security Plus, Network Plus. I would get those first, because all those are actually going to flow into your PCI. Like they were talking about networking, right? We've been talking about the networking. So all of those are going to roll up into their Security Plus, going to basic. So I think you need those skills to help before you get to the PCI. And if you get those skills, I think you can go into a higher level at PCI that helps you uh, get a higher level job, right? So that's my 2 cents. I plan to be PCIP this year. PCIP. What does that acronym stand for? PCIP. Which one is that? I got to figure out which one. Are you in the industry already? Oh, let's see. Let's see. She's in there. I participate. Okay, PCI 7, my career. So that's cool. That's cool. What do you currently do now, Sharon K? I think I've asked you that before. What do you currently do now? Let's keep rolling while Sharon K give us a brief synopsis. Another one, internal security accessor. We got a lot of accessors on here. Internal accessor program teaches you how to perform internal assessments for your company and recommend solutions to remediate issues related to the PCI DSS compliance. Assessors are sponsored by their companies. Once again, so when you receive your qualifications, you will be able to act as a liaison with the external PCI auditors and manage interactions with qualified security assessors, QCA slides. So once again, I got a lot of roles. Here's the internal security assessor. To get 5 hours of PCI fundamentals. Once again, if you go to PCI DSS, they have classes in security. So I never looked at it enough to really want to get one of these, but I don't know, it might change. Maybe Sharon K is going to cause me to switch up. Here, the point-to-point assessor, point-to-point application, operates in-depth program. Once again, recertified each year. Certified PCI Security Council, qualified to assess compliances for the PCI point-to-point standard. Because the quality of PCI application solution validation assessment can have a tremendous impact on the consistency and proper application of security measures and control. PCI security standard P2P qualification requirements are extracting in detail involving both security companies and individual employees. The time elapsed from application submission, so that tells you it. So this is two companies, I guess, exchanging credit card information, point to point, from the assessor and the application assessor. How would that work? And once again, tying those together. So obviously, that's a different type of assessor. So, like I said, I thought I picked out most of them. The qualified integrator and reseller, uh, principles and procedures for securing installation and maintenance of a payment application in a merchant environment in a manner that supports their PCI DSS compliant efforts. It's a simple process for joining the QR program. The QR training candidates must receive training on how to securely configure, install, maintain payment applications on behalf of their merchant clients. Once the candidate passes the exam, the QR will be listed on the PCI CS website. Right, so that's cool. If you have that and you certify something, you get on their website as secured and valid vendor to do those type of payments, right? But once again, you got to pay for that training, and your company's got to get you in there. The qualified pen assessor, the PCI pen security requirements and test procedures. Training will provide you with understanding requirements of the security management, processing, transmission, and personal identification number, doing payment card transaction processing at the ATM, attending and unattended point of sale terminals. Upon completion, you'll be able to conduct a PCI PIN assessment, validating the test that the entity PCI PIN security standard compliance and status, and prepare for the appropriate compliance report. Right. So once again, they got a ton of assessors, a ton of different ways, I guess, to get in the industry. Let's see. Boom, boom. Let's see. I'm a senior IT project manager with compliance experience. Worked for the airline for ever too long. That's cool. That's cool. Congratulations. I always think about getting into project management because that's a unique a unique skill set. I work with a lot of project managers, but most of the project managers I work with have very little compliance and very little security. Right? We were training them up, so they would come and ask me a lot of questions. So that's definitely a hidden skill. I had one PM. She worked with me when we were at the large state agency. So she's one of the other few people I know that had those type of skills from a project management standpoint. So let's keep going. Qualified assessor, PSS validation assessment can have a tremendous impact on it consistently. I think we went over that one. Let's see. This is the last one, I believe. Secure software assessor training covers PCI secure software requirement and assessment procedure. Perform secure software assessment, verify the work product, and address all the secure software assessment procedure steps. Support validation status of the payment software. Strictly follow secure software standards and the PCI secure software assessor. Effectively use the PCI software reporting template to produce secure software reports on validation. That's the software ROV. Learn how to complete the software ROV and secure software AOV with the attestation of validation, right? So this is actually looking at the code, looking at the process, looking at the pipeline, make sure, they're doing the OWASP top 10, I'm sure, in there, right? No cross-site scripting, right? No cross-site forgery, all that good stuff in there. Right. So another one is the secure lifecycle assessor. oh, perform secure software lifecycle, verify the work products, very similar to the other one, right? So they have a lot of the same assessors, but once again, PCI is so big, I think they're trying to dig down and figure out specifically what a role can do and how, I guess, specific you want that role to be. Give me a job. Shout out to Finesse. Let's see, keep rolling. I'm seeing a lot of cybersecurity project roles being posted lately, new, and I like it. It blends. Yeah, because I think there's so many cyber issues now. They need a specific project manager that has that background, right? Everything from, like we just talked about, secure coding. We're always patching, vulnerability scanning, that whole life cycle. A lot of that becomes projects, right? If you can't patch something, it's got to be patched later. You got to put it in the poem. So you got to get those resources. Big companies, a lot of time, project managers work with the leaders to make sure we got funding when the funding's gonna happen. So all that's part of project management, which you know because you're in the game. So once again, I work with quite a few project managers over my time. So once again, we're about to delve into AWS. This is the shared security model, one of my favorite models. This is security. AWS has for security of the cloud, and the customer has responsibilities in the cloud, right? So AWS is going to give you hardware, global infrastructure, availability zones, data centers, right? You're going to put your code in there, your data in there, your configurations in there, what should be encrypted, right? So those two, once again, are shared responsibility. AWS gives you the components, but you have to configure them, right? So you still are responsible for those, right? So once again, when you grab specific components, you can ask, as you see here, if are these components PCI DSS certified, right? Meaning they had a assessor, one of those many we looked at these and said these are PCI certified. There's probably 50 or 60, right? I just grabbed a couple of these, right? So those are it. So I always, when people tell me they're building something, I say, are those services PCI compliant from AWS perspective before you even start, right? So I think that's a big deal. Let's see what my man Ty said. The cybersecurity is asking for a 4 years degree. Is it even worth applying for these roles? I have a certain 2 years. I still would apply. I think, and we discussed this a lot of times, is I think you got to start with lower roles and work your way up. Right, there were 8 roles. I think some of the smaller roles, I think you could probably get in and maybe work your way up. But no, I think, and I think too, I think that's a boomer thing, and I'll probably do another video. I think as the boomers kind of phase out, I think the X and Z's, they're not pushing degrees like they're used to. So I think that's starting to loosen up a little bit, Ty. I think shout out to my man before the billions. He did a video where he said 60% a lot of, but I think it was data engineers had degrees, but most of those guys were old, right? So that's why that number was high. So I think that's changing, Ty. So once again, if you look at that slide, especially everybody knows I'm an AWS guy. So when you deal with AWS, it tells you if those components are PCI certified, which one of some. So that's what you look for when you build. And as an auditor or a GRC guy, right? That's what I look for. Is what you're using PCI certified by AWS before you even start building it. Right? So let's keep rolling. Here's like we were talking about networking at a high level. To resolve some of the challenges, we propose a new architecture based on VPC endpoints, DynamoDB. To all access to DynamoDB should be internally private communication. Access to DynamoDB, which is a database where you're going to store all your good stuff, right? We looked at the CDE and the SAD data. Access to DynamoDB using the AWS console should be prohibited, right? So this is just showing you a network design from AWS and what and it can't happen, right? So I got a few of these. That's a little more, I guess, advanced. So it's a little more simpler, right? So you got a phone that could be PayPal. CloudFront is their CDN, which means the software gets pushed closer to you anywhere in the world you want. Web application firewall, Amazon API gateway. Lambda is just called running. VPC means that DynamoDB has to go through your, like they said, your internal network infrastructure to get to that, right? If you looked at the bottom, untrusted internet, external firewall, DMZ, internal network, right? So we're going to look at a couple requirements and how they get satisfied by each one of these components at a strictly high level. So let's see what's going on. How much networking should we know? It can get complicated these days. Oh, facts. Wait, you remember software? Oh, facts. I do it. I just think it needs to be at a high level, right? So you can know what a 3-tier network is, a 4-tier network is. You know what VLANs are. You know what subnets are, right? Because even if you do a subnet, it could actually be a VLAN, right? And describe. So from an architectural picture, I think it should be just probably at a intermediate level. I don't expect you to be installing Cisco routers across a global WAN. So just a little higher, probably intermediate level. VLAN, subnets, uh, ports and firewalls, VPCs, right? So those type of software that gets plugged into your VLAN to make your network secure. So I think that's the level it should be at. Let me know if that makes sense. I'm dragging. So at the bottom, let's see. Step 1 is here. The phone. Consumer transaction sent to Amazon CloudFront from the internet. So we talking about having a TLS1, which is encrypted, and a part is that that one. From that, we got anti-spoofing, permits HTTPS only on port 443, and that's the data we're sending through, right? Then 2 is the Amazon CloudFront transaction forwarded to the web application firewall, listening on port 443, stateful inspection, application attack roles, which is probably the OWASP top 10, right? High level, right? So we're just going to speak high level, but from a cybersecurity part and a GRC part, we should be understanding those terms and how they work inside there, right? Number 3, which is the WAF, transaction forwarded from the API gateway. So that's 3. So we're going from the WAF to the gateway. Once again, TLS 1.2, URL parameter rules, authentication and authorization, right? So the WAF is going to make sure that's signed in, make sure it's authorized, and make sure it can do that. Once again, those are the data segments we're using. 4, a transaction forward to the Lambda for web services, Amazon network. Now you once again you're in the internal network, which is the private part of that. Functions, parameters, and validation. So what are you sending to, and what are you looking for that credit card to happen? Are you looking for any code to happen in your Lambda? Right. A lot of times they get your IP address, figure out where you at. 2, once again, we're not talking about that though, but to make sure you're kind of the location you should be. You're in a location where 90% of your charges is not coming from another country or anything, right? So those are some of the things you could do inside your web service function. Right? So once again, these are requirements from PCI DSS, right? You see it right there, version 4 on AWS. So as a GRC person, when people configure these types of networks and communications, you need to understand them at the high level to see if they're secure, and you can ask the appropriate questions. So let me move my head real quick. So, but you can see there, untrusted, external firewall, DMZ, external network. Those are requirements. Those are the things we configure to meet those PCI DS requirements. Let's keep going. Any more questions as we roll? 5, authorization is here. All right, so we're going from our internal network to the Amazon DynamoDB payment databases. That's where all the good stuff is stored. That's really where the hackers are trying to get to. Transactions sent to Amazon DynamoDB payment database for storage, transactions, and detail prior to processing. You're in the private VPC, TLS, AES 256 encryption. KMS is the key management store where you keeping your keys so you can encrypt the data at rest in transit. You control those keys so the hacker can't get them. Secure groups, VPC endpoints, private VPCs, AWS API credentials, IAM roles. So you say you who you are to be able to get back there. Resource and policies to lock that down. Number six is there. Transactions returned to the lambda from the transactions. So now we got the data, we're sending it back out to the database, and we're going to send it to the payment processor to make sure you got good credit, or you're not over your limit, or your credit card is good. Right? Transaction returned to the lender for transactions. Response track. And seven is you see it going to the payment processor. Transaction sent to the payment process for authorization. No CHD return. Internet IPC VPN. So remember, you going over the internet, you going over untrusted network. So all that has to be secured and tightened down. Third party service provider defined. Once again, PAM name, expiration date, and your three-digit number behind on the back of your credit card. Right. So once again, that is a simple network diagram of how your transactions, what services are you calling inside AWS and what they're doing, and how do you secure those and make sure you meet PCI DSS requirement, right? And that's what all those assessor jobs were doing, right? To making sure those secure and you can get your credit cards handled. So once again, we're about to just wrap it up. I grabbed a couple login requirements. Those requirements 10. So we're just going to touch on these at a high level. Requirement 10, AWS provides many service-specific security and audit logs to assist customers in meeting their compliance needs. With this in mind, control should be placed in the account. 10 is we're going to use AWS Cloud Trails to provide a history of AWS API activities. The AWS region is where you have your data. Includes action taken from the management console, SDK, and command lines. So at a high level, you do some work, AWS Cloud Trails. What did you call? What did it do? It puts it in an S3 bucket. Glacier, sometimes you have to say those for a year or two. I do a lot of IRS work. We have to say those for 7 years. So Glacier saves those in a super cheap storage, but sometimes it might take 18 to 24 hours to get it back. But it's just log data, so it taking that long, being that cheap is okay. The two is certain things happen in your cloud trail. You can have it alert the security team. You can have it go for analysis, or you can send it to your pager, which we don't have pagers anymore. Cell phones, you can send it to a dashboard. You can send it to a SOC. If you have a global company, you want all your places to all your data go on one SOC. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with AWS Cloud Trail from a logging perspective. Secure the audit log files. Customers should put those, and we were looking at X3 buckets. The Cloud Trail access uses 5-grain IAM policies and only allow specific information security personnel to access the audit trail. All right. So only certain people can look at audit trails. All right. And you should never be able to change them. Right. So that's the policy. It goes to the audit trail. The trail gets put in the S3 bucket. Over here is your security team. What access or policy can they get to see certain cloud trails, certain machines, certain VM machines? Who can see them and what level of security they need? So review audit logs. Customer have options and tools to help you review security events and audit trails. At the bottom, you see Amazon Athena and Amazon QuickSight. These development things where you can read actually raw log files, and actually you'll see right here, give a nice dashboard with stuff just on the S3 bucket. It's not even saved in the database, right? So now we talk about data lakes, data models, data warehouse, right? Different places to store your log file. So you can do trending analysis, vulnerability scans, right? Keep track of your log file so you can see what's going on. And a lot of those, of course, are going to get sent to the SOC to see what's happening also. We can retain log files. Customers should use a dedicated S3 bucket, CloudWatch logs to protect the data. They got something called an S3 object lock that can be used to support 12-month retention requirements by restricting the ability for somebody to accidentally to delete or maliciously delete the logs. If a hacker gets in there, he's going to try to delete those logs. And remember, we were showing access rights and who can get to those logs, right? And the S3 lock is more protection on top of that. Oh, let's get over here. So that shows you the Lambda schedule. CloudWatch gets put in the S3 bucket, gets moved to Glacier. Then we can put the lock on and say you can't delete these for 12 months, 7 years if we're doing the IRS. But once again you have control over that in your S3 bucket. Times, you want all your logs time synced, because when you're trying to trace a file coming through your networking or your infrastructure, your company, they're coming from different logs. So your time has to be synced up so you can trace it through your web server, app server, right? We saw a ton of AWS components. Each one of those components probably going to have logs. So you want the log time to be synced up so you can track it through your organization. Right. AWS has something called AWS config, which is pre-built checks for certain compliances. One of those compliances is PCI DSS 4.0, and we can look at those real quick. And if you see it, let's see it. So you can say AWS config, look at my infrastructure and see if you see any vulnerabilities, see if you see any findings, see if something's not encrypted, right? So you can run AWS config, and I just showed a couple here. 1.3, prohibit direct public access between the internet and any system components in the card reader. This says EC2 instance inside your VPC. So the guidance tells you how to set it up in your VPC, how to put it in a private subnet, how to go from your public subnet to your private subnet, right? Prohibited direct public access between the internet and any system components in the card or the reader. That's for your Lambda function. Public access is prohibited. And make sure your Lambda is inside your VPC. There's probably 100 of these checks depending on, once again, what components you're using. We were looking at our architecture diagram of different components. This is going to test your components to make sure they configure correctly for. This is PCI DS 3.2.1. They're currently working on 4, and it's supposed to be out shortly. So, but these things you can run once again to make sure your AWS setup is appropriate for that PCI work. And the big deal, this is the last one. You take all your AWS components, and you usually send them to Splunk Cloud or Splunk Enterprise. And Splunk gives you all kind of dashboards and things to help you, right? And the Splunk can be configured, and their cloud is configured for PCI work, right? So a lot of times you put it in Splunk, especially if you're a global company, because you want all your AWS components and all your on-site components in one location. So you can troubleshoot if somebody's trying to attack one part of your organization, your internal part, your on-prem, your cloud. You want all those going to Splunk so you can see a complete picture of your organization, right? So I'm about to drop the link. That's kind of PCI DSS from a GRC perspective. I didn't want to get too crazy with it because it's a big compliance, right? So there's a lot of things about it. So if anybody has any questions, of course you can drop them in the chat. I'm gonna hang out a little bit. I had a long day at work, man. I was doing some reviews at work, so just trying to get it together, but it's coming along. So I hope everybody's gonna have a good hump day tomorrow. Shout out Wednesday. I know a lot of people trying to get into this industry. There's a lot of gatekeeping in there. I'm putting it out there. So don't give up. Keep struggling. Keep grinding. A lot of people know that I put in internships that are remote. Those are actually on my community tab. So you can go check those out if you're looking for an internship this summer. Because I know a lot of new people trying to get into the game, a lot of people getting their certs. Chris asked me a very good question about that. I'm gonna highlight him. A lot of internships ask, are you going for a degree? Are you going for a 2-year degree? Are you doing a 4-year degree? Right. So, and I think Ty actually mentioned that in one of his questions. I would word your certifications and place them as you get them, like you trying to get a certain role, and that role is your degree, right? So I have this cert, I put in this so many hours, I've got this type of experience. So I would word, if you try to get one of those internships, your cert, how you study and what you're doing as similar to a degree. Then I would tell them, once you hire me, I will go get a degree, right? So I would kind of work where your certification accumulation and your job role you're trying to get as your degree, meaning I've done this cert, I've got this cert. It took me 6 months to get this cert. And certs do relate to job experience at a certain level, right? So I would word it like that. If you're not at a particular university and you were trying to get one of those internships and they actually mention a degree, I would word your cert and your learning in your labs as process for getting a certain role that that would equate to that degree, right? Because you get degrees to get certain roles and certain jobs. So that's how I would word it. Let's see, can how can someone become a QSA? Some of those you can enroll in. If you go to PCI, you can enroll in those current courses, or sometime you got to work for a QSA company, and the QSA company is gonna um, support you. That's not the word, right? They're gonna you got to work for that company to be able to go for that cert. So I would look at some of the lower ones. You could just take those cert. Then I would use that certification to go work for a QSA, and that QSA was sponsor you to get one of the higher QSA roles, right? The so that's how I would do it. Let's see. I think I'm about to run out of steam. I keep moving, just getting drained. I'm with you, man. The grind is hard, man. I'm, you're 100% correct on that, right? So, and like you said, a lot of times you just gotta take a deep breath and hold still and tread water, then start at it again, man. That's kind of how I am with YouTube, man. After they demonetize me, they hurt my feelings. I'm about to tread water, then I'm about to hit it hard again, man. I'm not going anywhere, man. So, especially at my age, sometimes you just gotta um, take a little break. And two is I know I haven't checked my email in a week, so I need to. So if I haven't responded to you yet, you gotta forgive PBO, give PBO a little grace. I'm about to check my email tomorrow morning early and respond to everybody. I just kind of took a little break. Like Ty, I've been kind of burnt out a little bit. Work's been a little crazy. Long story short, I was watching a friend of mine's dog. We had to put the dog down today, so I'm a little down. Shout out to the dog; it had a good life. So, but it's all cool. But stay on that grind, man. And you're right. I'm like I said, I'm drained. Sometimes you just gotta take a little mental health break. We talked about make sure you take care of your health, mental health, your regular health. PBO got to lose a little weight in 2024 for my health. But two, yeah, man, it's a long grind, man. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and some years I'm flying, other years I take a break, man. I took a break for a whole year for a minute. I didn't study for a cert. I don't think I cracked the book. So I just sometimes you just got to take a little you time, man. There's nothing wrong with that, and just get back in it, man. Because this I know it could be discouraging. It could be, like I said, gatekeeping. It could feel like you're never, gonna never get in. Like I said, I just been blessed and a little lucky, man. Once again, I got an IT so early, so before it really blew up, I've been doing cybersecurity for 15 years, right? So I just got in before it was hot. A little story about me. Most people know. There's a few new people in. I've been doing IT for 30 years. I've been doing cybersecurity for 15. I got my bachelor's degree in 1990 in computer science. My first high school programming class, I was in advanced AP for college, was in 1985. I did COPAL, RPG, PL1, and Fortran. Some of that don't even exist anymore. So I programmed for 10 years before I actually started doing other things. I was a DBA, Oracle DBA for 3 or 4 years. I was a web admin and an app admin doing Apache and a Tomcat for about 3 or 4 years. So I did all that before I got in IT. So I've been in this game for a long time, and this game has treated me pretty well. Not pretty well. This game has treated me outstanding well. So, um, like I said, I know everybody's experience is not going to be like mine, but once again, it's out there, and people know if you reach out to me, um, I will respond. It might be a week this week, but you can reach out to me. I would always give you. We could jump on here on a private conversation. A lot of people tell you I easily give you 10 or 15 minutes, and we can chat it up if you have some specific question. A lot of times I'll answer your question and send you to somebody. Especially I send anybody, but especially when I talk to females getting in the industry, grinding. I give them 2 cents, but I'm sending you to Tam because Tam gonna give you a different perspective I can't give you. So I'm definitely gonna send you to homie Tam, right? She be giving me good advice. So I send everybody, but any females that hit me, I'm definitely sending you to Tam to go get you some a different perspective than what I can give you. So shout out to my man Keep It Techie. He's been in the game. So I definitely gonna send you to Keep It Techie. He in there. I'm sure he probably cut out my man Keep It Techie, Tech Avengers. I probably send you to Gage, Struggle Security. Shout out to my young guys. Probably send you to the GRC Study Hall. They're doing some good stuff on Trello. So I usually pop in and help those guys. So yeah, you see me out in these cyber streets trying to help people with my 2 cents. So I be trying. This is my man Aiken. Is the sysadmin still a thing in IT, or is it being replaced? I think it's a thing. I think it's being replaced in morph. Me and Tam and Keep It Techie was we're talking about that. When I spin up my AWS resource and I use AWS Linux, when my web server didn't come up, I had to get on that box, Aiken, and figure out what's going on. I had to VI, I had to do a PS minus EI. I had to use those system admin skills because a VM is just a box. It could be a Windows box or it could be a Linux box, right? I'm an Amazon Linux too, right? I shout out to Keep It Tech. Yeah, I'm a Unix guy. So I think those skills are there. I think they're called different things, Aiken. Once again, because when I spin up a BM, and once again, if I put something in to start up, if it doesn't start up, I had to go in there and figure out what's wrong, right? I forgot a backslash, so it didn't get put in the right directory, right? Those are system admin skills. So I think they're a little different. So when you spin up a VM, right, you automatically get EBS block storage, right? But they have high volume block storage. Do you want to take a VM and share block storage? I think all those are system admin skills. I think they're just used a little differently now, right? And so, especially if you're going to do a site reliability person, you got to understand VMs, you got to understand spinner, you got to understand DR, you got to understand if this whole data center goes from a health check, how do you roll over to a different data center? How do you roll over to a different region? I think all of those are still system admin skills. But that's my 2 cents. I'm getting old, man. But once again, when I do my AWS labs, I'm using system admin skills, especially from Linux, because I end up getting on that box. I end up checking stuff on that box. I end up checking my AMI image to make sure what I put in there got put on the box appropriately, Aiken. So I still think those skills are needed. That's why we love and respect you. I appreciate it. Thanks for you. Welcome, man. You know you can pick me anytime, man. What does PCI say about vulnerability management? Do we only have to fix high and criticals to be compliant? Um, no, I think you got to fix mediums. They tell you, and I talked about it at the beginning, you definitely got to have a vulnerability management plan, right? Once again, I think you every month you got to run your Rapid7, your QualSys, or your Nexus checks, right? So, and you have to fix those because if any of those cause a vulnerability and get you hacked, right? That's gonna get you sued. So you definitely have to fix those. So I still think you have to fix high criticals and mediums on there. I am Aiken. I'm tired. I'm like tired. I had to take a break. A long story short, Aiken, I was working on it. When I got demonetized, I got to figure out a different way because I was gonna put on my membership. Long story short, YouTube didn't like how I was doing some of my videos. So I got demonetized. But in 3 months, I can reapply to get my monetization back. I got a little lazy aching. I just start wrapping news articles and just sending them. Long story short, when I when I had a strike, they never gave me a strike. They just took my $2 a day and just sent it to the news organization. So I didn't think I was doing anything that wrong to get demonetized for that Aiken. So that membership kind of got thrown off when I got demonetized. So I got to figure out what I got to figure out my plan. I was talking to Tech G. I might spin up Moodle, which, long story short, is a learning management system. A lot of people know this. I taught cybersecurity for 10 years at a local community college. So I'm familiar with a lot of learning management systems. So I got to figure out what that is and kind of what's my next play. The real thing is I'm still working on those videos. I just got to figure out where I'm going to put them since I'm demonetized and I can't use the yeah, I thought about Patreon. I need to dig into it. I know everybody's talking about go join my Patreon. So yeah, I got to figure that out. I can. Um, Long story short, Tech G, there was a Moodle cloud. I thought I was liking that a little better because I wanted to do it more like class. I could do a class. I can actually do quizzes and tests inside Moodle. I don't know if I could do that on Patreon. I got to dig in that a little bit. But like my man Ty, I just took a deep breath once I got monetized. So I'm gonna take about a month off and kind of figure out what my play is gonna be. Right. Once again, I'm gonna drop the link. If anybody want to come up, you can. If not, that's cool too. We counting down. PBO running out of energy. So let me check on my LinkedIn. Okay, I'm over on LinkedIn. I don't see anybody over here, but I gotta get a little better at LinkedIn though. I got 3 people listening. Shout out to the LinkedIn. I don't see anybody leaving any comments or anything. Let me see if like I said, I gotta start looking at LinkedIn better and see what's going on. Okay, I'm over there. I saw my comment. Let's see what my man. Yes, classes. So yeah, flat now. I'm trying to get it together. Once again, I taught, so I want to do it as a class format. Shout out to my man Chris and Eric, because a lot of stuff I'm kind of tested into his GRC, and I kind of want to expand it in my membership. So shout out to them. I was there. They're helping them. They doing it big. But yeah, so yeah, I want to do a class. If people are familiar with Simply Cyber, I kind of want to. I was going to reach out to them. I want to do kind of a more intermediate class for GRC, focusing on this because I'm a NIST guy. NIST 800-53 to be exact. Let's go big. Let's do the big monster and make it happen. That's me on LinkedIn. If anybody want to come and join me, that's my government name. Shout out to me. So a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn or I like their stuff, or shout out to Keep It Techy. My mom was out there. So you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, that's my government name on LinkedIn. So I'm over there. I'm hoping to probably do more different type of articles on LinkedIn and kind of grow that part of LinkedIn. Shout out to Kev Tech. I think he got 70,000. I'm trying to get to 2,000 on LinkedIn this year. So got to grow my little LinkedIn. Baby steps, right? So none ever this life went for me easy. So I don't expect to get this huge hit and have 100,000 subs. That's never gonna happen for me. So, but no, shout out to I came here to help people, so I'm cool at where I'm at. Shout out to NC Worker, one of the day ones. Good evening, everyone. Shout out to my man NC Worker. But there it is, PCI QSA. I have a compliance playlist. I definitely had to get PCI, the credit card industry, on there. My last one, I'm gonna say last one. The next one I'm gonna do is gonna be HIPAA, high tech, high trust. Looking at HIPAA work. I do a little HIPAA work at work, so definitely gonna hit that. Then I'll probably go back and start updating to the new revisions and going a little deeper on each one of the compliances. So I worked at a large government client, and when you work at a large state, you sending files to state police. That's sieges. I did a lot of IRS work, which is IRS Pub 1075. NIST, state ramp is getting big. So there's a lot of different compliances when you start sending other files to state agencies. You need to understand the basis of it, right? We were looking at a new payment platform, so I had to understand PCI DSS at a higher level, right? Because we were going to sub that workout, and I had to do an assessment of it to make sure third-party vendor to make sure that vendor was appropriate to handle our level of work for our level of payments we were trying to do. See what my man Flattening now said. How about CSA plus class 2? Got a lot of security controls in there. Yeah, I've heard it was pretty good. I'm studying for the CISP, but I've been doing that forever. So that's the one I've been studying for flat now, which that's on the same level. If you do federal work, if you look at the 8570, I think CISP, CYSA, and a couple of them, they call it level 3. So I know those two are on level 3. So definitely a good cert to have. Shout out to Casual Economist, definitely one of the day ones. Glad you can join me. You probably gonna have to check out the replay. We turning it down a little bit, winding it down. Talked about the credit card industry, PCI DSS. Keeping your credit card safe, keeping your Apple Pay safe, keeping your Samsung Pay safe, right? We looked at some AWS infrastructure and how using those components, how you would secure those in AWS. I actually put the link in there. What is up? Can you hear me? Eamon, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Yeah, what's going on?
What's going on? You're doing a PCI stuff and I'm just joining you.
That's cool. How are you doing?
Good yourself.
Oh, I can't complain. Running out of gas, gear to go to bed. Hopefully, I'll wake up early. I can't complain. How's everything going with you? I know you were making some headway, doing a few different things. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, we just passed our PCI audit actually. So I thought
okay.
I'll jump in and ask you a couple of questions, and I asked you in the chat. So thank you for answering.
Oh, okay. Did I answer them to your satisfaction? For some reason, I didn't know that was you. For some reason, I didn't know that was you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you satisfy the criteria quite properly because we did the whole vulnerability management piece for
Mhm.
PCI, and I just wanted to get your opinions on that as well, since you're quite experienced in that.
Yeah, I've done a little bit. If you go into the description box, AWS has a good document where they talk about each one of those requirements. And they did talk about vulnerability in there and a little more in depth. So if you go in the description, if you go to the bottom
Yeah,
of the description, it's AWS. They talk about all those requirements being configured from an AWS perspective. Even if you're on prem, right, a lot of that still is going to be the same. So I will pull
yeah,
that out. And they did talk about vulnerability. I don't think they named I take that back. I think they named their vulnerability scanner, which I think is System Manager.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah, we got everything in AWS, so that makes it a little bit easier. So
okay,
yeah,
okay. I guess I didn't know y'all was using, but yeah. So that kind of walks you through each one of those requirements. I think it was for 4.2. It was for 4.0 which was AWS has a lot of reference architectures and reference things you can look up, and they went through it super in depth. I just picked out logging because I was doing some logging stuff from probably a couple months ago. But no, they dug into the vulnerability management in that document. So.
yeah. Now, what do you suggest, like when you're going into the audit before the actual external audit? What
Mhm.
kind of things do you do in during your internal audit, because you have to understand if you're actually complying with it or not, right? So what do you
Yeah.
suggest for that?
That document, if you have AWS config, and I talked about it, it's a product. I don't know how expensive it'll run through your AWS architecture, but basically, I just kind of running through those documents and looking at those requirements one on one, and they went through every requirement pretty detailed. Like you said, are we doing vulnerability scan? I think they said you got to run one every 30 days. Are we doing that?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
asked, what are we doing with those requirements? Are we putting those on poems if we can't get them? Sometimes I haven't dug in PCS. NIS 800 wants to see your funding for that now to make sure you're
Hmm.
serious. If it's going to be a year and you saying it's going to be more money, what's your? They want to see your budgets kind of in there to make sure you're serious about it. So I thought
Yeah,
that was a big oppressive, but yeah. Um, so so yeah. So if you looked in there, they kind of drill down to each one of those. But from a vulnerability spraying, system manager, like you said, prioritizing those. I need to. from PCI
Hmm.
perspective critical. I don't know if it was 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to fix them, but I'm sure they lay out the time frame you need to get those fixed and how are you tracking them and getting those turned around. And if you can't, turning those in poems and what's your mitigating control if you can't fix and getting those documents in there. So just that standard process, really. You still there? Or you hung? Oh, you might be hung. I think he's gonna drop and come back. Let's see. Shout out to him. Smash the like button. Man. Dr. Fernandez. Let's see. I might need to drop him. Let's see. He might need to drop and come back. Let's see. I'll drop him. You still there? I think he hung. Can I drop him? I don't want to remove him. I don't know. Oh, he's back. Oh,
Yeah,
what's
sorry.
up? No,
my,
you fine.
my connection dropped actually.
Oh, that's cool. It's technology, so no, that's. But I think that
Mhm.
if you dig into that part, I think it have in there. I think it was pretty standard. I would just look
Yeah.
at the um the time frame of each one of those categories of vulnerabilities, and once again, when they want you to get a fix in that whole process, right? Shout out to Sharon. A lot of times they want to see you have a PM on a project, depending on how big your PCI DS is. Oh, you must be having. Shout out to Sharon. We need to get a project manager on deck. What's up, man? Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, you're fine. So, but yeah, I would look at that document. They were digging down pretty deep in each one of those compliances. Shout out to AWS. I love the reference documents. So how you can complete it. Uh oh, he must be having issues. So, he's back. He's back. What you got to say? I'm about to cut out and go to bed. I'm gonna give you? Oh, he not gonna make it. He having a tough time. Which is where we usually have good connections, though. That's pretty rare. We have bad connections. Let's see if anybody else had anything in there. Okay, cool. You're fine. All right, we connect. So that's it. I'm gonna see if anybody have any more cool connection. His question was on the vulnerability scans. Um, AWS has System Manager. You can use Qualsys, Nexus, Rapid7. There's a ton of big guys out there. Just have the process when you scan, when you have them identified, when you're going to fix them. If you can't fix them, what's your mitigated control? Put them on a POAM, right, which is just a schedule when you're going to have them fixed. So those are some of the things from a PCI perspective. But like we talked about, Chris and the GRC study hall is, those things really are the same in NIST CSF, PCI, HIPAA, FERPA, CGIS, right? They all have vulnerability scanned at a certain level. You got to have them fixed. Some of them want you to have a documented program with policies and procedures. Some of them just wants you to show a program or procedure with that happening, right? A lot of times we just get on teams and just talk through stuff, have a meeting, have a CCB, which is a control board configuration, talking about risk of each one of those vulnerabilities, right, and roll those up at a high level. Have a program so you can actually show an auditor, show an assessor. We talked about 6 or 7 assessor roles. So they want to see documentation of videos with a process for you happening. So once again, it's Professor Black Ops. Please subscribe. You see it. Let's get it. I'm out for today. If you email me, just give me a couple days. Like I said, I took a little break. I was kind of burnt out and trying to kind of making some personal moves on my side. So just had a few things happen. Nothing big though. Just trying to make it out here. Shout out to all the people trying to get in the industry. Don't give up. A lot of people out here to help you. What's Tech Avengers out here to help you. Once again, my little 2 cents. If you need me, ProfessorBlackOps at gmail.com. Just give me a couple days to get back with you. Once again, I've been out of pocket for a week, but I'm gonna start getting back to those emails and making things happen. Once again, I'm out. Everybody have a hump day and a great week. Let's go. I'm out.